In May of 1994, when Nelson Mandela was being inaugurated as the first black president of South Africa, to the north, in Rwanda, a terrible genocide was taking place, with at least 800,000 people killed in 100 days. As the world now heads to South Africa for Mandela's memorial, another civil war, this time in the Central African Republic, has diplomats vowing not to let such atrocities happen again. French troops have just arrived in an attempt to disarm militias. CNN's Nima Elbagir is on the ground in Bosangoa, and she witnessed the violence unfolding over this past week.
Even as the UN Security Council was voting to give France the mandate it needed to engage here in the Central African Republic, Christian and Muslim militias were taking aim at each other's communities.
For the last 20-30 minutes, we've been hearing sustained gunfire. We've now started hearing some heavy weaponry. It's coming from a lot of different directions. Oh, and that was an RP overhead. Oh. Dad, I'm here. I'm here. Where are you? Okay. All right, they told us to go. Let's go.
The African forces, the FOMAC, have come to get us. You can see them. They're giving cover so that the UN vehicles can get out.
We've now been brought to the FOMAC base. The fighting is still quite close even here. Some of the displaced people, when they heard the gunshots, ran, and they're taking shelter here with the African forces.
Okay. Bonjour, madame.
We have finally had some respite after 2 days of violent clash. The African Regional Peacekeeping Force, FOMAC, was able to negotiate a brief ceasefire to allow aid agencies to get out there and assess the needs. They're running low on food, they're running low on water, they desperately need some sort of proper shelter, they desperately need medicine, and they can't leave this camp. They are effectively under siege by the Seleka militias. The only line of defense between them and the Seleka now are the African forces guarding them.
You know, the rights of children and women need to be respected, and they're not being respected. And, you know, we can't do our work, and there's frankly little prospect for moving out of this situation unless people, especially leaders, people who are armed, people who are responsible for armed men, recognize that and begin to take those responsibilities seriously.
They're shooting again. Okay. The shooting started again, so everybody's having to run for shelter inside. Should we take the other one? The children are all squashed here, so there's no room for us. You can see how terrified people are, even here, inside these walls, surrounded by soldiers. They are still not safe.
And Nima joins us live now from Bosangoa, where French troops have now arrived. And as we come on air right now, news that the US military is to fly more African Union troops to the region. So Nima, what do you know about the stepped-up U.S. involvement here now?
Well, the sense we're getting here, Christiane, is that the escalating violence here in Bosangoa has forced France's hand. Initially, the plan was that they were going to focus on stabilizing the capital, Bangui, and then slowly spread out towards the region. But the death toll that we've been seeing, the spiral of retaliatory attacks between the Muslim Seleka militias and the Christian militias, that's caused the French troops to have to move up here far quicker than they expected to. And they've had to travel light. Only about 120 men came into town. For now, that seems to be enforcing a tense but calm ceasefire between the two sides. But the reality is that not only are they going to need to sustain that, but they're going to need to push further out, where about 130,000 people, we understand, have been hiding in the bush for the last 6 months, Christiane, and that's where the U.S. comes in. Yesterday evening, the U.S. Secretary of State for Defense received a call from the French Prime Minister requesting their help in deploying other African Union troops and other French troops so that they can build up the numbers and hold some of these positions.
And Nima, it's such an incredible difference from 20 years ago in Rwanda, where the UN Security Council did not authorize any troops, and look what happened in Rwanda. Do you think this might have an effect now that the UN Security Council is stepping up to the plate? For instance, what have the French been able to do so far? Have they been able to disarm some of those militias?
Well, what they seem to have been doing is really going big. You know, we've had French military jets flying overhead almost every day since the French presence was officially sanctioned by the UN. They've been patrolling around town. They've been a very visible presence. But of course, that's not enough in the long term. Even with the African Union troops back up, even with, you know, the US flying in as many reinforcements as they can get, the reality is that, you know, we've been speaking to Seleka commanders and they say, okay, for now, we're going to retreat back into these areas of containment. But this is our country. And one commander put it to me, he said, when they want us to leave power, they'd better have killed us. I mean, that's really what you're dealing with here. And maybe that's why the US has decided to move in, so that they can hit quickly, hit hard, and then neutralize these people, put them into a position where perhaps they can be forced to the negotiating table.
Nima, thank you very much indeed for all the work that you're doing there, including being dive bombed by insects who are attracted to your lights there. Thank you very much.